The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Howard, and I want to welcome you to the Navigating WebBGAS for SPO webinars. I will be conducting the webinar along with Charlene Carr and Crystal Pender. We are the BA team for the BGAS system. Also want to let you know that the webinar is being recorded, and we will be sending one of the recordings out to SAMHSA to be uploaded to your YouTube site. So it'll be there for a reference. Because we are recording, everyone is muted. We will be taking questions. We'll be taking breaks throughout the webinar and answering any questions you may have. So you can go ahead and use your question box to enter any questions, and we'll answer them or respond to them during the break. Also, at the end of the webinar, if you wish, we will be opening everything up, and you can verbally ask your questions at that time. All right. With that, let us get started. I just want to go over a couple things for the login screen. You will note that we have some links down here. So if you've forgotten your password, there's a link to help you and the directions there to walk you through it. If you forgot your username, it's the same idea. Here's a link that you can click on and walk through the process. If you need a new user account, we have here a document that it takes you step by step what is needed for a new user account. Now, just to let you know, for state users and supervisors, state supervisors, they must contact you, their team lead, to get an account set up. The process has to go through you for the states to get their accounts. You as a team lead or a new team lead, you as the SPO or a new SPO, if you need an account, you need to go through your team leader. So that's what the process is. And then the team leader has to go to the core for their permissions for new accounts. So that's what the process is. But here is just a simple guide on what is needed to set up a new account. The other info, if you need assistance, our help desk staff is there for you. They're great. They can answer any question. If they don't know the answer, they'll find out and get right back to you. And their information is right here. You can click on the link. It'll send you to an email where you can enter your information, or you can give them a call at this number. You'll also notice we have some disclaimers for the SPO list and the state contact list. Now, the SPO list is something that it's there for everyone to use, the state users, everyone who has permission to log in to BGAS, it's there for their use. And I just wanted to give you a quick review of what it looks like. It gives you the states, and then for the different applications, which SPO is in charge for that application. And this is important because I'm going to go over another element within BGAS that is important to you that I need you to keep attention to. All right. So having said that, let's go ahead and log in. All right, let's try that one more time. The first thing to appear once you start the login process will be the window shade. And here we just have basic information, what applications are open and ready, WebBGAS schedule, that's monthly maintenance, and then we also have here browser functionality, which browsers are to be used, and the easiest way to access them. Once you've updated yourself on any of this information, you can just simply click on the window shade close and it'll bring you to your dashboard. Now I have opened it up to the substance abuse dashboard, and you will note here, up here in the upper left-hand corner is what we call a legend. And if you simply open that up, it gives you in detail, explains what all of the icons on the screen mean. So if you ever need a reference, this is here for your use. And you'll note for SABG that it is broken into regions. And then there are states within each region, and which ones are assigned to you will appear here. You'll see here we have a summary count, and this is just a quick view of where the states are in total, which have been submitted, where there are any open revisions, so on and so forth. Very easy to understand, but that's what this is. It's just a quick view of the status of the applications. We have here available block grants. It's a drop down. And I'm going to go to the 2021 SABG application. So that's a way you can navigate between the different dashboards for the different years. All right, and you'll see here, once again, it's basically set up the same way. If you want, like I said, you can use the available block grants to go to the different dashboards for the different years. If for a state you want to look at what their application status looks like, if you simply come over, you'll see Maine. When I highlight it, it's a link. If I click on that link, it will open up to Maine's open applications. So here we have all of the applications that are open for Maine. And simply the status, the progress, the date that they started, the date it ended, so on and so forth. When you get here to the end of the list, you'll see here it says print. If for any reason you need to print out an entire application for a specific year, for a specific state, you can do so by simply clicking on the print button. And that will give you a hard copy of, say, the 22 mental health block grant report. Going back to the dashboard, I simply want to go over a couple of the items on the dashboard. And for that, I'm going to go down to 2020 SABG. All right. So here you can see the first thing I want to point out, you'll notice here for Maryland that when their plan opened, they have a little asterisk next to the plan. That means that Maryland has a combined mental health and substance abuse application. They're doing both at the same time. Where you'll notice here that Maine and Georgia, they don't. They only have a substance abuse application. So that's what that little asterisk means. And then you'll notice here, as we said in the legend, all right, the yellow, that means that one of the SPOs has completed their approval process. For the red, the spotlight means the approval hasn't been completed, has not been completed. And if you see green, that means that the approval has been completed. That means they've gone through the entire approval process. So that's what those red, what we call stoplights are for, to let you know where they are in the status, where you are in your status of review. Number of open revisions. This lets you know that you have entered a revision request to the state, and this is just once again a quick view of what that revision request was for and the status. You'll see here it's open for revision, which means the state has opened it and they have begun the revision process. For the second one here, you'll see it was sent to state. So you have sent it, but the status, they have not yet opened it and begun the process of the revision request. And then the information here is what is needed for that request. So when you see those, you'll know that's, when you see those numbers, you know that's what that means. Also, just a quick FYI, while we're waiting for the dashboard to come back. If you see a 0, that means either A, there have been no revision requests made, or the revision requests that were requested have been completed. So here, this means that for SINAR, there are no revision requests at this time. But this is just another quick way for you to view the status of revision requests for each state. You'll note here we have check marks. Those check marks mean that you have completed your part of the checklist. And we're going to go over the checklist a little later on. But that simply means that you have completed your section of the checklist. For details of who has done what, if I click on the detail, it'll bring us in, and you can see here who it was approved by and the date it was approved, date and time it was approved. So this gives you a quick reference, a quick brief reference of the status. Now, for substance abuse, for mental health, PATH, and PAMI, the dashboard is set up differently. For the mental health applications, the dashboard is set up slightly differently. It is set up in alphabetical order. So your states that are assigned are going to be in alphabetical order. The rest of it is the same. So when you're viewing it, the same goes for the open revisions. You'll note here, instead of check marks, you'll see the name and then the date and time that it was approved directly on the dashboard. So you don't need the details list. But everything else in navigating through BGAS is the same. The look is different, but navigation is the same. The other item I want to go over with you real quickly is up here. You'll notice we have a toolbar, and there are a couple items I want to point out. I'm going to begin by, within WebBGAS, we have the training manuals. We have the training manuals for the states, and we also have the training manuals for the SAMHSA staff, the SAMHSA team, and they are right here. So if you wish, you can go in and download the manuals, and they will give you step by step all of the processes throughout BGAS, throughout WebBGAS. So if you have any questions, if you simply come in here, and I'm not going to do it right now, but if you come in and open it up and save it to your desktop, you can always use this as a reference tool. And also, please, when you're talking to your states, let them know that the applications are here when they log into WebBGAS, that they can also come and download their tutorials or applications. So all of this here is to help walk through the process of completing an application within WebBGAS. Another item I did want to point out is here on the state profile. You'll see here we have here, this is for the state to complete. And we ask them when we do their webinars to please make sure they go in and make sure the information on this screen is up to date. We ask the same of you. Once you have your account set up, either your team leader or your team leader and you will sit down and go in and assign what states and enter that information for us. So we just make sure when you log in for the first time after a while that you go in and make sure that for CSAT, CSAP, mental health or PATH, that the information that is seen here is updated. This drives many of the reports that were done. That SPO list I showed you, that's where this information comes from. And other areas within WebBGAS are driven by whose name appears on this screen. So please make sure that all this information is updated. The other item I did want to point out is we have several standard reports set up within the WebBGAS system. And you'll see here, this is an overview, but we also have it broken down. And you'll see here we have PATH, and if needed, if you want to, you can always refer, we have the opioid SCR reports. Now, there's one thing I did want to show you before we went any further, and that was one of the questions we often get asked is, what report is used for what table within the application? If you come here to Report Catalog, you see it says Standard Report by Form. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to go in and I'm going to say I want 2021. And I'm going to open it. You can do it as a web, a PDF, or an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to keep it as a web. I'm going to ask to run the report. And what this is going to do is it's going to give me all for 2021, all of the applications that we have done, the plans and the reports. So if I come here to the Substance Abuse Block Grant Report and click on the little cross box, you'll see here all the tables within this report are here. And then I need to know, say, for instance, for Table 2, State and Agency Expenditure Report, which standard reports hold that data. And you'll see here, these are all the standard reports that report on Table 2 information. So you can always use this as a referral. Now I'm going to click on one of these reports, and it's going to take me to what we call the parameter page. And here's where you can set up your parameters of how you want the report to be run. You can set up the years, whether you want SABG or MHBG. Do you want the data to show up in a grid and a graph, or just graph and data only? And over here, you'll see you can do it by state. So if I click on all states, it'll click all states, or you can go through and click a specific state. However, we also have, if I do the drop, oh, don't have it for this one. I apologize. I'm going to go to another one to show you that. I do apologize because there's something else I want to show you. And for that, I'm simply going to come down here. Now, for the SAMHSA staff and higher, for SAMHSA, basically SAMHSA staff and WebBGAS staff, we have these SAMHSA operational reports. The state users cannot see these. You have to have specific permission to see these reports. And these are other reports I thought you might like to see that you yourself can use. We have the dashboard reports, and we have the approval summary reports, and we also have a user role and access report here that you may find to be helpful if you're not sure what state, what states have active users and what their access is. So if I come up here, I'm going to come to the Assessment and Plan Submission and Approval Summary for SABG. Once again, you can see it's basically the parameter page is set up the same way. What I wanted to show you was you can also run these reports by region, or you can run them by SPO assignment. So once again, when we come back and we were talking about the state profile, that's where this comes in, to make sure that the right SPO or the right team lead has the correct state. So if you want to run this report for yourself, you can do so, and all the information will be correct. So you can just simply go in, scroll down, find you, and then you can run the report. Now, the report can be run through the web as a PDF format, as an Excel, or as a Word document. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to run this as a PDF. And here's what the reports look like. This is a basic structure, standard structure for all of our reports. But that was just to let you know that these reports here are here for your use and how to run them. All right. Crystal, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do. We have actually two questions. First question we have, what does the BGAS Help Desk mean?
Excellent question. Our help desk, we have Derek and Avi, our help desk team, and they are there to answer any questions that anyone may have. They're there, I believe it's 8 through 5, Monday through Friday. And they take questions, say one of the state users, they're having problems opening an application, they can contact the help desk, and our help desk team will walk them through that process. I mentioned passwords before. Oftentimes, states will contact the help desk to set up a new account, and then we refer them to their team lead there at SAMHSA. But they're there to assist in any way they can. If you have any questions, if you have a problem, if something isn't working as it should be, you can contact our help desk team and they will walk you through the process. They're very, very knowledgeable.
Thank you, Mary. And the information on how to contact the help desk is inside the questions, as well as on the BGAS site. And then we have another question. Can we see examples of reports?
Sure, I'll be happy to. All right, I'm going to come in here and I want to show you, this is what we call a snapshot. Now, this is the only report that's basically set up this way. But you can come in and you can select your state this way by simply clicking on the state, or you'll notice down here there is a drop down that you can use. So that's one, and you can run it, but I just wanted to show you that. I'm going to come down and I will go to persons served. We have this SA treatment, SA prevention, and mental health treatment. That's how we have them broken out. I will come down. I'm using the percentage of unduplicated persons served by age group and race. I'm going to do 2020 through 2022. No, let's make that 2021. I'm going to do it in a PDF, in an Excel format. I'll do all states. And this is how I've set up. And I've completed, when it asks for the asterisk, I completed all that information. And now I'm going to run the report. And this is what the report looks like in an Excel spreadsheet. You'll notice down here, this is for 2021. And then I come down and click on the tab, and that gives us for 2020. And then if you'll know, one other thing I did want to point out, let me scroll down here real quick. And you'll notice down here at the bottom, at the very bottom of each report, it tells you the source. So where this information came from. It came from table 11. So, and all the reports, when you run all of the standard reports, the parameter pages and the pages themselves of the standard reports are set up the same way. Any other questions?
Yes, we actually had quite a few questions come in. Next question is, so the BGHD Help Desk entry on the screen is record that the state contacted the help desk.
I'm sorry, Crystal, can you repeat that for me?
So they're referencing the BGHD Help Desk entries that are on the application dashboard, saying that that's just a record that the state contacted the help desk. So if you go back to the dashboard, Mary.
Okay, hold on just a moment.
And you see underneath where SPO, you see there it says BGHD and Iowa, in that row, Iowa, and if you go over where it has the stamp for the BGHD Help Desk.
I am so sorry. Please, let me explain. This is our UAT test site. This is not the live application. So we all have logins that we go into. I do apologize. When you go into the production site, that's the live site, that's the actual site, you will see real names here. This BGHD, this is someone's within the BGAS team's login account. This has nothing to do with who's contacted the help desk. I do apologize. This is the UAT site, and we go in and this is where we do all of our testing. And we've all set up different accounts to log in to see how different things run.
And I'd like to say here that in reality, on the BGAS system, the name of the SP who signed off on the checklist, the name of that SPO will appear here, and the name of the TL here underneath the TL column.
Correct. Correct. I do apologize for that misunderstanding. I hope that clarifies. Any other questions?
Yes. When and where will these recordings of this webinar be available, please?
We will let you
So
know.
But I did put the link to where all of the SAMHSA webinars are housed inside the questions as well. So our previous recordings will be there, and our future ones will land there once they're available.
Thank you, Crystal. I appreciate that. Yes, they go to your YouTube website, to the SAMHSA YouTube website, and that's where they're located. We will go through this. We have to go through the process of reviewing it and then getting it captioned. And once that is completed, we'll send it over and have it uploaded. And once it is uploaded, I'll send out, one of us will send out an email letting you know that it's there and ready for review and your use. Any other questions?
Yes. The next question that we have, thank you for answering the questions in the chat. Does person serve include rural and urban?
Does persons served
include rural and urban? I believe this is in reference to the report that you ran.
That is a good question, and I will have to go in. It was for all states and jurisdictions, so I would say yes, but let me double check, and we'll get back to you.
I think I can answer the question, Mary, if you'd
Good.
like. Yeah, so the person served is usually divided by the race and the ethnicity and the age groups, and not by rural and urban. So yes, the person served reports or the forms will include both rural and urban data, and then so would the reports be pulling data from those tables in the application.
Thank you, Charlene.
No problem.
Any other questions, Crystal?
Yes. These reports are based on the data the state entered in WebBGAS, they're asking.
That is correct. That is correct, that the information that you see in the standard reports comes from the data that the states enter in the application, whether it be the plan or the report. So what you're looking at is the data that the states have entered. Anything else?
Why are there a lot of 0%? Where is report pulling the data?
The reports are pulling the data from the tables. So when you look at a standard report, you're looking at the data that is going into each of the tables that report is based on.
Mary, can you explain that the presentation is being done or is being carried from the UAT site, which does not really have the actual data the state entered, which is why they're seeing a lot of 0% in the reports?
And thank you, Charlene. Yes, and that is the other thing. Remember, we're looking at our test site. So when we go in and test these tables, we'll put in basically fake data. So don't look at these reports within UAT and be concerned, because this is all fake data. None of it's real. When you go into the actual production site, if you go in and look at those reports, they are accurate. They will show the accurate percentages and the total numbers and all of that. What we're doing here, what we use this site for, as I've said before, is testing. So the data is all fake. But that's a good question. Anything else?
So if the state does not complete the plant tables, there will be 0% in the report. Yes,
That's
that is
it.
correct.
Yes, that is correct.
And those are all our questions, Mary. Thank you.
All right. Great questions. Good for you guys. Now, one other thing I want to go over before I hand it over to Charlene is one of the questions was asked of us was to go over the NOAA information, the notice of award information and where it's uploaded. And I'm going to come up here to 2022. I apologize. I should have gone to 2021. The notice of award, one of the questions that was asked was, where is the notice of award uploaded? The notice of award is uploaded to the report for both mental health and substance abuse. So once the report is opened by the state, you can come over here to the left menu tree and you'll notice now for substance abuse, it's both allotment and notice of award. So the allotment button becomes active or the tab becomes active. And you can then go in and you can enter your second, third, and fourth quarter data. But you can enter your quarterly information here. And then for the notice of award, you can click on that tab. And you'll see here we've already uploaded the notice of awards, quote unquote. Remember, test site. So here's where you can come in and update your notice of award information. So it's once the report is open for the state, once the state has activated their report, that's when you can go in for mental abuse and substance abuse and upload your notice of award information. Excuse me. All right. Charlene, are you ready?
Yes, I am, Mary. Thank you.
Okay, it's all yours.
All right. Can you see my screen, Mary?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. And I also saw that there was one question where it says, once you turn the legend on, how do you get it off? Since I'm on the BGAS application and presenting, so I can show you real quick where the legend is and how to turn it off. So this was the legend button that Mary was showing. And this is actually a picture, and you can cancel it out by pressing on this close or the cross icon. So that's where it is. If you're not able to see the cross icon, you can adjust the screen size on your screen. So that may be an issue, but that's where the close icon is located. All right, so I'm going to show you what happens when the state submits the application. So once the state submits the application, the SPO for that state or that application should receive an email from the BGAS system, which would state that the state has submitted their application, and now the SPO can go ahead and review the application. As an example, I'm going to be showing you California's 2022 MHBG plan. So once you log into BGAS and through your application dashboard, you enter the application of the state, you will notice that you will be landing into the SAMHSA review tab of the application automatically. Now, this is the tab that is created after the application is submitted by the state. On this tab, you will see that there is a link to the SPO checklist. Now, if you want to review the application before you fill in your checklist, here is the Overview tab, which has the links to all the forms within the application, or you can access the different forms within the application section by section. And if you want to access the checklist at any time, here's the SAMHSA Review tab, and here is the link to the checklist. Now I'm going to show you how the checklist looks. For every checklist in the BGAS application, the format remains the same, which means for every checklist, you will see that there are tabs running across the page, which is the section of the application to which the questions below would pertain to. And you will have the questions in yes and no, and sometimes not applicable answers. You will have the links to these different forms, the links that open up in a separate tab in your browser. So if you are reviewing the state information section and answering questions on that section, you have the access to the different pages under that section. And clicking on those links will open up those forms in a separate tab. You will see that some of the questions on the checklist have a check mark against them. Now, these questions are have to be answered a yes for the checklist to be approved. And you'll see that at the bottom of every page. It says that a yes response is required for the checklist to be approved. There is also a link to the entire application on the checklist. So clicking on that link will open up the application overview screen on a separate tab. So this is to make it convenient for your reviewing of the application, so you have all the forms handy. Once you fill in your answers to the checklist, you can click on Save for each of the tabs. And once you have all the checkmark questions answered yes, and right now, as you can see, that the PO approve button is not active, which means the SPO is not able to approve the checklist yet, because one of the checkmark questions is not answered a yes. So I'm going to look for that question which is not answered a yes. This is the one that was answered a no, even though the check mark was on the question, which is why the PO approve button was not active. Once I save this, you will notice that the PO approved button is now active. At this time, the SPO can click on the button, and they also need to put in their initials. And if they'd like to add any comments for approval. Now, at this point, they can approve the checklist. This is just a confirmation. Click OK. And you'll see that the checklist is now approved by the PO. On the SAMHSA Review tab, you will see that your name will appear here based on your login information, and the timestamp at which the checklist was approved will also appear here. At this time, after this action is taken, BGAS will send an automated email to the TL of that state for that application that the application is ready for their approval. The TL can now log into BGAS, access the application, and through the SAMHSA Review tab, access the checklist. You will notice that the TL will see the buttons TL Approve or TL Reject. Upon reviewing the checklist and the application, if the TL feels the need for some revision to the checklist, they may click on TL Reject and reject the checklist. And if you do this, it will ask for the initials. Now, what happened was when the TL rejects the checklist is now open again for the PO approval. So the PO approval is now blank again. And now the PO can now go in and make changes to the checklist, save the changes, and at this time, again, enter the initials, add any comments, and click on PO Approve. You'll see that the checklist is now PO approved again. Again, the TL will be notified that the checklist is approved by the PO. And at this time, if the TL accepts or approves the checklist, they can enter their initials and click on the TL Approve button. And you'll see that it has been now signed off by the TL, team lead, and the timestamp also appears. So this was the MHBG plan checklist. I'm also going to show you how the checklist for the MHBG report looks like. And for that, I'm going to open 2021 MH report. And again, when the application is submitted, you automatically, when you enter into the application, you automatically get into the SAMHSA Review tab, and you'll see the checklists are available on this screen. In case of mental health report, you have two checklists. So there is a mental health POTL checklist and a URS checklist. I'm quickly going to show you how similar these checklists look. As I said, the format of every checklist in the application is the same. You have the tabs running across the page. And then the questions underneath are basically yes and no questions. Some of the questions have check marks. And if all the check mark questions are answered a yes, right now you see that the PO approved is inactive. Once all the check mark questions are answered a yes, the PO approved becomes available, and the same workflow continues. The URS checklist also is the same. You have the PO approved once all the questions are answered, saved, and then the TL approval. Now I'm going to move on to the SABG plan checklist. I'm going to open 2021 SABG plan checklist. Once the application is submitted, the PO and the TL can access the checklist from the SAMHSA review tab. Since the plan is a 2-year plan, you will see that there is a drop-down list available on this page as to if you want to access the checklist for the first year, 2020, or the second year, 2021. So you can choose your selection and click on Go. And this is the CSAP checklist, and this is the CSAP for treatment. I will quickly show you how similar these checklists look. You'll see that the format of the checklist remains the same. You have the yes and no questions. Some questions also have not applicable, and those are also acceptable responses for the checkmark questions for the checklist to be approved. And there are tabs running across. You have links to the forms, and the PO approval, TL reject, and TL approve buttons are available on the screen. Same is for the treatment checklist. Since all the checkmark questions are answered a yes or are not applicable, you'll notice that the PO approve button is active. Now let's talk about exceptions. I'm going to open up 2021 SINAR to see how an SABG report checklists look. Here is a SINAR checklist for 2021 SINAR. The first checklist that needs to be filled by the SPO is the SINAR SPO review checklist. Now you'll notice that the format of the checklist remains the same. You have yes and no questions, and maybe some text boxes for dates entry, or page numbers. But the approval buttons are slightly different in case of SINAR, based on the requirements we received from SAMHSA. There are no check marks on the checklist, and the levels of approval on this checklist are approved early alert, which once that is done, appears under the status on the SAMHSA review tab, the date and the person who did the early approval. And then there's the initial completeness review, which also, for which the record appears here. And then the final review approval. Now, once that is done, the SINAR report threshold conditions checklist is supposed to be filled in by the PO. And all questions under this checklist, threshold conditions checklist, have to be answered a yes for the approval to happen. So once this is saved and all the answers are a yes, the PO can approve the checklist. And you'll see that the status now shows that the threshold checklist was approved by this person with these initials and on this date. Now I'm going to open the same application for the 2021 essay report. Now this was Virginia. So I'm going to show you how the checklists for the report looks for SABG. You have the treatment checklist, the prevention checklist, as well as the threshold conditions checklist in this case. Now, the difference with these checklists is that you do not have the approval buttons within these checklists. Everything else remains the same. The SPO is supposed to answer yes or not applicable for all the checkmark questions. And for each of these sections, there are questions that have yes and no answers and sometimes text boxes. The same happens for the prevention checklist. There are no approval buttons on the checklist, but the PO are supposed to save their answers on these checklists. And what happens is, on the threshold conditions checklist, you have the answers from the treatment checklist and answers from the prevention checklist, pre-populating the threshold conditions checklist. So these are the questions on the threshold checklist, and this is where the approval happens. So the questions or the answers to these questions are pre-populated from the checklists themselves. And once they are all yes and not applicable, the SPO can approve the checklist. And you'll see that the summary or the signing off on the checklist appears over here with the timestamp or the date. The next step is the TL approve. That also happens under the threshold checklist. Same is the case with the prevention checklist. The SPO approves and then the TL approves. And for the SINR, as we just saw, I filled in all the yes answers. All of them are pre-populated here, but the approval happens within the SINR application itself. So there is no approval here, but the answers are pre-populated into the threshold conditions checklist. So once the SPO approvals and TL approvals are done, they're all shown here. And then the next step is for the program director approval. And after that is the grants management approval. And so this is the workflow for the essay report checklist. The next application I'm going to show you is the PATH application and how the checklists for PATH look. So in case of PATH, you have a checklist for each IUP within the application. And all of these checklists are to be approved by the PO. Again, the format remains the same. And once all of these IUP checklists are approved by the PO can then go into the state level review checklist and approve the state level review checklist. And again, the format of this checklist also is the same as other checklists. Once the checkmark questions are all answered yes or not applicable and the checklist is completed, the PO can approve the checklist, the TL can reject or approve the checklist. And lastly, there is also BC or branch chief approval on the PATH checklist. The last application on our system is the PAMI application. And again, it looks exactly the same, but I'm going to show you the exception on that checklist. And because I have admin rights, I'm able to see this little drop down at the top of my screen, and I'm able to navigate into the PAMI application. But otherwise, you need to have special permissions to navigate into PAMI application because the PAMI application is walled off from the other BGAS applications. So I'm accessing a PAMI application, and I will show you that the PAMI checklist, the format of the checklist remains the same, but you have the PO approval, and here it is. You have the yes and no questions and the text boxes. The level of approvals in this case are PO approved, but there is no TL approved. Instead, there is first level approval, first level reject, and then second level approve. So that was just an exception in the terminology in the PAMI checklist, which I wanted to point out. And now I'm going back into the BGAS application for showing you how you can issue revisions on applications. But before we go there, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do. The one question, we have two questions, but they're kind of tied in together. The first one is, on my WebBGAS view, I only have existing applications, application dashboard, timeframes of application submission, and state profile. I do not see a notice of award tab and other functions on the left hand of the screen. It seems as though I have limited access. Should I contact SAMHSA staff to receive additional access? Previously, I could see more functions on the left hand of the screen, and that's tied into that same question.
All right, so it could be because of the state of the application. It may be that the previous year applications, they are submitted, they are in a state when you're able to see the notice of award tab, and the current applications are not yet submitted, which is why you're not able to see that tab. But in case you feel that the status of the applications is the same, but you have more options on one application, then you can contact our BGAS Help Desk and show you your screens, and they'll be able to see your screens, and then they can definitely help you out with it. If there is a problem, then we can work on that problem to fix it. Do we have anything else?
Nope, those were all the questions. Thank you so much, Charlene.
No problem. All right, so now I'm going to show you how you can issue revisions on the applications. Let me use 2021 MHBG plan. All right, so you may be reviewing the application or filling in the checklist. And while you're filling in the checklist, you are looking at a form and you feel like something needs to be revised on that form. For example, you're reviewing table 6, and this is how you open table 6 on a new tab, and you feel like there is some problem with the numbers on the form. So in that case, if you'd like the state to revise anything on the form, then there are ways to make that happen. And I am going to delete the existing one to show you how to create a new one. All right, so what happens is you are reviewing the form and you want something to be revised. You have the request revision button on top of every form in the application. So once the application is submitted, you're able to request revision on that form. You can click on this button. It will ask for a description. Now it could be something like change amounts on row 7. And once you've entered the description, you click Save. You'll notice that you will see your name as the created by and the timestamp at which the revision was created. The status of the revision is created. Now at this time, you have just created the revision, but it is not sent out to the state just yet. So if at this time you'd like to not send it out, you can delete the revision. Or if you'd like to edit something to its description, you can make edits to the description. Once you click on Send to State, this button, you will notice that the status is changed to Send to State, which means now the state users will be receiving an automated email from BGAS, and they will know that something needs to be revised on this table. And now this is something that you don't see, but the states will see. Once the state receives the email, logs into BGAS, accesses the application, and access the table, they will see this button, which says Start Revision. Again, as a SAMHSA user, as a PO, as a TL, you will not be able to see this. This is only for the states. They will click on Start Revision. And you'll notice that once they click on Start Revision, the table, the submitted table, which was non-editable for them anymore, it opens up, and now they can enter numbers into the table again. So the Start Revision button unlocked the table for them. They could make revisions into the table, click Save, and click on Complete Revision. Again, you don't see Complete Revision button. This is only for the states. Now, once they have completed the revision and they have entered the revision, the amount that was supposed to be revised, once that is done, you will receive an email that the state has completed the revision. And now once you know that the state has completed the revision, you can log into BGAS, access the form, and now you will see that there are two buttons available for you: Approve Revision and Disapprove Revision, which means if you're okay with what the state entered, you can approve the revision, and the revision will be, the workflow of the revision will be completed, or you can disapprove and send it back to the state. If you click on Disapprove, enter a reason for your disapproval, click OK, you will see that the status of the revision now becomes Sent to State Post Disapproval, which means the state is again going to get an email from BGAS saying that the revision is not approved. Again, as a state user, when I see that email, I will log into BGAS, access the table, see that the revision was disapproved. I will start my revision. I will revise my numbers, click Save, complete my revision, and now again it comes back to you. And now when you access the form, if you're okay with the revision, you can click on Approve Revision. You will notice that the status is approved. And you will notice again that when the page refreshed, the entire bar for revision is gone because the workflow for that revision is now completed. Now, if you were to create multiple requests, multiple revision requests, or just if you'd like to see your revision requests on the application, then you also have a tab on the left side of the application, which appears after the application is submitted. This is Revision Requests. You click on that, and you'll notice, because this is a 2-year application, you have 2 tabs, one for 2020, one for 2021. You can filter the forms, the ones without revisions. If you click here, it will show you all the forms with no revisions. Over here, forms with revisions will show you that these are the forms that have revisions open, and it will show you the status of these revisions. You can filter the forms based on the ones that are just created, ones that are sent to state, ones that are approved. So all of that can happen. And you can also create a revision or send a revision or issue a revision on this tab. So if, let's say, you'd like to create a revision on disclosure of lobbying activities form, you go to that form, click on add revision, and you also have the convenience of viewing the form right from the screen, and that opens up in a new tab. And then add a description, save the description, the status is created. Now you can send to state right here from the screen, and then the workflow continues. So you have two ways of creating revisions or managing your revisions, either at the form level or through the revision requests tab on the left side of your application. All right, do we have any questions on the revision request feature?
No, we do not.
All right. Moving on to the last section that I have to cover, which is the documentation log. So on WebBGAS, there is a feature called documentation log, which is for the SAMHSA POs or the SAMHSA users to save their notes on BGAS. Once you log into WebBGAS, you'll see that on the left-hand side, there is documentation log menu item. Once you click there, you will be asked to choose the state, the fiscal year, and the application for which you'd like to enter your note. I would also like to make a comment here that we are revising the documentation log feature at this moment, and a new release of documentation log will be available very soon, but we will have a training on the new features of the documentation log, of the new version of it. So right now I'm explaining what is available on BGAS right now. So if you were to use it now, this is how you'll be able to use the documentation log feature. You enter your state. Let's say you select Alaska. You select your fiscal year and you select your application. Now you're just selecting all these parameters for your note. So you click on go, and what happens is it opens the Alaska's 2021 SABG plan. The other way to enter into the application and add a documentation log or a note for that application would be to enter into the application the usual way, and then opening up the documentation log page from the left-hand side menu on the application. So you could have gone into the application and accessed the documentation log from within it, or as we just saw, you could also enter into that application to enter a note from the application dashboard itself. So now, because we are in the application itself, these fields are pre-populated, which is the state, the fiscal year, and the application. You can go ahead and choose a different value. You can do a different state, a different fiscal year, or a different application. And now this is the field that is required, which is the type of activity. You have several activity types available here. Let's say you choose phone call, and now you're trying to maybe add a note which is associated with a table or a form of that application. These are all optional fields. You may or may not choose these fields, but let's say I select table as the state information. Contact information would include all the people who are associated with this application. So you may or may not choose. Again, this is not a mandatory field. Project officer, this list is populated from the system with all the project officers for this application. You can choose your PO, and you can choose a date that you want your note to be associated with. So I am choosing September 2nd, and here's the note where you can enter text. And once you have filled in everything, you can click on Save Note. And once the note is saved, you'll see that a record displays on the screen with the selected year, the application, the table, the contact person, the activity type, the timestamp at which the note was created, and the date associated with the note, and the note itself. Once the note is created, you may be able to add attachments by choosing a file from your system and uploading it. And you can also search the previous notes through the search tab, the search note tab under documentation log. So let's say if I were to search for the note that I just entered, the state, the year, and the application are already selected. You can choose the type of activities, or deselect the ones that you don't want, but make sure that you click Save within the drop-down list. So if I were to search for the record that I just entered, I'm going to choose phone call, click Save. May or may not choose these fields. You can even choose a date range for the note, or the date that was associated with the note. All of these fields you can fill and look for the record. And you'll see that the note we just added is now appearing on the screen. Under type of activity, you'll notice that there are certain types of activities that you choose when you save a note. And then there are certain types of activities that are system generated, like status log, which will show you any activity on that application that was made, be it somebody saving the form or the application being submitted. Everything will be covered under status log. Any created or issued revisions will be shown under revision request, and anything changed on some of the forms we're implementing these, anything changing on a form will appear under change tracking. And I'll show you if I click on change tracking and save this option. I'm going to not select these fields. And click search. Go back. So you'll see that on table 2 for MHBG, under this application, the activity is change tracking, because on this table at this time, the planning period dates, the start date was changed from 1/1/2021 to 1/2/2021. So this is what change tracking does. This is implemented for some tables. And so the documentation log feature can also be used to track changes on tables within the application. All right, so that was my part. Do we have questions?
Yes, we have one question. When will the delete note function be added to the documentation log?
Yes, so that is one of the big features of our new version that will be released soon. So once we release that version, we will be able to, or you will be able to delete your records or delete your notes from documentation log. And once that new version is available on BGAS, we will let you know, and hopefully we will be able to train you all on the new features of the new version of the documentation log.
Okay, those are all the questions.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That was my part. And Mary, I believe it's back to you.
Thank you. We have covered a lot today, and I want to thank you all for attending. Please remember that, as I said before, under the support tab on the upper toolbar, there are the training manuals, and there are the training manuals and navigation manuals are there for the SAMHSA team. So you can always use that as a referral for what we have covered today. If you have any other needs, you can contact the help desk, as we've talked about before. You can drop me an email if you need to, if you have any questions. With that, I would like to once again thank you all for attending, and thank you for your questions. They were really good. And with that, I want to say goodbye, and please be safe. Take care.